What is a good friend? Making the best of friends is a spiritual practice. This story from the early Buddhist scriptures takes place when the Buddha was staying in the city of Shravasti, and it depicts the event where King Pasenadi visited the Buddha and listened to his teachings. The main content of the story is that the Buddha speaks about the importance of having good friends. And it is taught that to do so, it is crucial to diligently practice good dharma in one's daily life. The Buddha emphasizes that having good friends is extremely important in the entire spiritual practice of a monk. The wise King Pasenadi listens to the Buddha's teachings and learns what the most important treasure in life is. This story holds a heartwarming teaching that is deeply relevant to our own daily lives. The fact that the subject of good friends is taught in the early scriptures shows that the teachings of Buddhism, from the beginning, do not stop at mere individual enlightenment, but are also important in the broader context of society and human relationships. What kind of teachings will the king receive from the Buddha? Now, let's lend an ear, open our hearts, and explore together the deep teachings hidden within this ancient story. After the story, there is an explanation of how to apply this teaching to modern times and gain good friends. When the Buddha was staying in the city of Shravasti, King Pasenadi often visited him to listen to his teachings. On that day, too, King Pasenadi visited the monastery, and after some pleasant conversation, respectfully asked the Buddha,
"World-honored one, recently, I was meditating alone quietly, contemplating your teachings. At that time, I suddenly realized, you have taught in your discourses to never have bad friends, but to have good friends, right?"
Your Majesty, that is correct. I have taught in that way.
The Buddha answered and told King Pasenadi about a conversation he had with his disciple Ananda when he was once staying in a certain village. One time, Ananda asked the Buddha,
"World-honored one, does having good friends alone constitute half of the pure practice?"
The Buddha immediately replied,
Ananda, that is not so. Having good friends is the entirety of the practice. It is because one has good friends that a practicing monk can be expected to walk the right path of practice. By having good friends, one can be free from vexations, free from desires, abandon numerous defilements, and engage in a practice suitable for moving towards peace of mind. Ananda, for example, if one takes the Buddha as a friend, one can rightly view the Buddha's teachings, rightly think, speak what is right, do what is right, live rightly exert oneself in practice, rightly retain thoughts in the mind, and engage in right mental unification. Ananda, that is why having good friends is the entirety of the pure practice.
The Buddha continued further,
Ananda, it is only by taking the Buddha as a friend that one can escape from the suffering of being born into the world of afflictions, escape from the suffering of aging, the suffering of illness, the suffering of dying, and escape from the suffering of sorrow and grief. In this way, gaining good friends is the entirety of the pure practice.
After introducing this conversation with Ananda to King Pasenadi, the Buddha said,
Your Majesty, therefore, you should strive to have good friends. Your Majesty, what do you think one should do to have good friends? To have good friends, one should firmly adopt a certain mindset. Namely, it is important to have the mindset of diligently practicing good dharma in one's daily life. And if you, Your Majesty, live diligently with such a mindset, your queen, your ministers, and your people will all follow your example and strive to live diligently. If that happens naturally, the country's production will increase, the economy will stabilize, and people's lives will be peaceful.
The Buddha then recited a verse for King Pasenadi.
When one wishes to gain abundant wealth for a long time, the excellent person strives to gain good friends and diligently practice good dharma. By making effort, one reaps benefits both in this world and after death, bestows benefits on others, always possessing blessings and virtue, and is called a hero and a sage.
In this story from the early scriptures, the Buddha himself is given as the best example of a good friend. Of course, even for us today, it is possible to gain the Buddha as the best friend held in our hearts through practices such as faith. But in reality, we must live through our interactions with others. We cannot live like the practitioners of old, renouncing the world and living without interacting with others. Therefore, referring to this early scripture, let me list a few points that can be practiced to have good friends in modern society. The first is sharing values. It is important to interact with people whose values and goals align with your own. Shared values form the foundation of friendship, and you can have a positive influence on each other. The second is the effort towards self-improvement. Striving to be a good friend yourself attracts similar friends. By working on self-growth and being mindful of moral and ethical behavior, you can build high-quality relationships. The third is empathy and support. By understanding your friends' feelings and supporting them, you can deepen your trust. By supporting each other, a deeper bond is formed. The fourth is honesty and sincerity. Sincere and honest communication is the foundation of healthy friendship. Honesty is essential in building trust and plays an important role in long-term relationships. The fifth is sharing common interests. By sharing common hobbies and interests, you can naturally build a friendly relationship. You can deepen your friendship through shared activities. The sixth is mutual respect. It is important to respect your friends' opinions and feelings and try to understand them. By respecting each other's differences, a healthy friendship is nurtured. The seventh is valuing communication. It is important to communicate regularly and maintain the relationship. Even in a busy daily life, valuing your connection with friends is key to maintaining a good relationship. As taught in this story, these 7 points show that good friendships contribute not only to personal growth, but also to the welfare of society as a whole. Even in modern society, these principles will serve as important guidelines for building and maintaining human relationships. On the other hand, to avoid making bad friends, it is important to pay attention to the following points. The first is improving self-awareness. It is important to understand your own values and goals, and discern what is beneficial and what is harmful to you. By increasing self-awareness, you can avoid people who may have a negative influence. The second is setting boundaries. It is important to set personal boundaries and have them respected. Keeping a distance from people who act against your values and beliefs helps to avoid making bad friends. The third is avoiding involvement with people who have a negative influence. It is important to avoid involvement with people who have a bad influence as much as possible. Human relationships are interactive, so relationships that are easily negatively influenced should be avoided. The fourth is trusting your intuition. If something feels off, it is important to trust that intuition. Intuition can often serve as an important warning sign in human relationships. The fifth is maintaining a sense of independence. It is important to have an independent spirit that does not depend on others. If you are independent, you are less likely to be dragged along by bad friends. The sixth is building healthy human relationships. By actively building healthy and positive human relationships, you can naturally avoid friends who have a negative influence. The seventh is conscious choice. When choosing friends, it is important to carefully observe their characteristics and behaviors and make conscious choices. Understand not only their superficial characteristics, but also their values and principles of behavior. From these 7 points to avoid making bad friends, it is important to improve self-awareness, set boundaries, avoid involvement with people who have a negative influence, and so on. It is also important to maintain independence and consciously choose healthy human relationships. These points will serve as guidelines for protecting yourself while building meaningful and healthy human relationships.